Hey historians, a quick video from me, one of the last videos of the semester. An important, I think, concept for us to talk about when we finish up our discussion of Civil War and move into Reconstruction is this idea of the Civil War as the first modern war. And the reason I want you to really dig into this concept, I don't know that your textbook really organizes this concept in a way that is really important for us as we move into Reconstruction. So I wanted to have this discussion with you via this video. One of the things that I think is important about the Civil War as the first modern war are the different technologies that develop and are employed or used during this war. Now, some historians will place the casualty count of the American Civil War at 620,000 casualties. When I was in school, that was the number that we bandied about. Eric Foner, who's a historian that I use quite often and refer to, places casualty counts that you can see here at the bottom of your screen, somewhere around 750,000. In the last 15 years, I have seen that number increase to a casualty count from the American Civil War of upwards of 1.1 million casualties from the American Civil War. It's a tremendously deadly, detrimental war to the American psyche. And one of the reasons for that high casualty count, for that high loss of life during this American Civil War, is that both sides are American deaths, right? This is a civil war within one civil society. So whether they're Northern soldiers dying or Southern soldiers dying, these are all American deaths and casualties. But the other reason is that technology moves faster than military strategy and medical science can keep up. So you have new rifles that are introduced. The nature of combat changes during the American Civil War. The mini ball, the rifling gun barrels. These are all new technologies that are introduced during the American Civil War. Railroads also introduced a new way to move soldiers and move equipment throughout the American Civil War. Trench warfare is another instance of what makes the American Civil War a modern war, because trench warfare is a slower way for wars to be fought. We know trench warfare most especially from World War I think. But we can also think of trench warfare being employed and used during this American Civil War. They were indeed used throughout the war. Conscription is the draft. And your textbook talks about this idea of conscription a little bit, but men are being drafted into military service in the American Civil War. Lincoln has to. Lincoln has to develop the draft. Otherwise, he will not have enough men to fight for the northern cause, for the Union cause, unless he develops this draft. Ironclad ships, all part, and I think there's actually some pictures in your textbook that show you some of these new technological warfares. Again, modern war, this idea of the Civil War as a first modern war, if I were to say ask you a question on your final, asking you to sort of engage in ideas of how the Civil War was one of the first modern wars, these would all be instances that you would use as examples. Even POW camps and the idea of disease being introduced to this American society. But I did want to also introduce the idea that's important to me, because newspapers and photographs also make the American Civil War a very modern war. The public engages with death during the American Civil War in a way it has never, ever done before. So photography, newspapers, trench warfare, railroads, conscription, new rifles and modern military techniques all make the American Civil War a modern war. But the last thing I would like you to think about in terms of the modernity. And here's an example, prime example, right? Photography, daguerreotype is a form of photography. This is a daguerreotype from the Civil War era, and this is actually a daguerreotype from the Reconstruction era, meaning post-Civil War. The last thing I would like you to think about in terms of the Civil War as a modern war and moving us into Reconstruction is total warfare. You'll read about William Tecumseh Sherman in your text. He's a Union general that pushes through the South and destroys most everything in his path. The only way for Lincoln and the Union Army to actually defeat the Confederacy is to destroy everything in their path. Total war, total destruction. Not just killing military targets, killing civilian targets, burning Atlanta, destroying agriculture, burning and destroying livestock. What does this do to the South when we move into Reconstruction? Once the war is over, how do we reconstruct and rebuild the South that has been destroyed like this? So this is a concept I really wanted to frame for you. I hope as you read the last chapter, the Reconstruction chapter, I think it's chapter 15, but don't hold me to that. I really want you to think about how we rebuild, not just social structure in terms of, yes, agriculture, livestock, buildings, houses, but how do you rebuild a Southern American mind? And do we? That's the question. Okay, historians, something to think about. Hope it helps.